On our anniversary, my husband took me to a romantic dinner, but as I took a sip of my wine, he whispered, "It's laced. Say your goodbyes." Little did he know I had switched the glasses, and when he collapsed, he looked at me in horror as I said, "You deceived me in love, now see the end." "Goodbye, my dear." The wine glass trembled in my hand, not from fear but anticipation. Across the candlelit table, Cole raised his own glass, oblivious to the fact that our 5th anniversary dinner would be his last. To us, he smiled, the same smile that once made me fall in love, now making my stomach turn. If only he knew I had switched our glasses moments before. Before we dive into Ruby and Cole's tale of love and betrayal, I want to thank you for joining this amazing journey. If you enjoy such gripping narratives, hit that subscribe button. It's free, supports the channel, and ensures you never miss an amazing story. Let's dive in. 5 years. It's remarkable how time can transform everything: love, trust, and even a person's soul. I remember the day we met as if it were yesterday, that crisp autumn morning at Thornfield Books. Both of us reaching for the same worn copy of Rebecca, our fingers brushing against the aged spine. His storm-gray eyes crinkled at the corners when he insisted I take it. "A beautiful book for a beautiful lady," he'd said, and I'd fallen for both his charm and those perfectly timed words. Our courtship was like a dance, each step precisely calculated, though I didn't know it then. Weekend getaways to hidden bed and breakfasts, surprise picnics in secluded meadows, intimate dinners at exclusive restaurants. Cole knew exactly how to make a girl feel special. Special enough to miss the subtle signs, the careful way he studied my family's wealth, the calculating gleam behind his tender gazes. The proposal came on a moonlit beach in Maine, waves crashing against rocky shores as he knelt in the sand. The ring was a family heirloom, he claimed, his grandmother's. I would later learn it belonged to someone else entirely, but that night, it sparkled with nothing but promise. Our wedding was the talk of the season. The historic Rose Garden Manor draped in white roses and twinkling lights, string quartets playing as we exchanged vows beneath a flower-laden arch. I can still picture Cole's face as he slipped the wedding band onto my finger, his touch gentle, his words honey-sweet. Forever, he'd promised. Another perfectly crafted lie. The first year was bliss, or what I thought was bliss. Cole was the perfect husband, attentive and thoughtful. He brought me coffee every morning, remembered every anniversary, monthly then yearly, and surprised me with thoughtful gifts. My friends envied our relationship, called us the perfect couple. If they only knew how perfect he was at deception. Looking at him now, in the soft glow of Lou Blanc's finest table, I see the masterful performance for what it is. The way he adjusts his tie, a nervous tell I've learned to read. The slight tremor in his hand as he reaches for his water glass. He's anxious tonight, though he hides it well. 5 years of studying your target teaches you their every nuance. "You look beautiful tonight," he says, his voice carrying that familiar warmth that once melted my heart. Now I hear the undertones, the careful manipulation in each syllable. "My black dress was his suggestion. It matches your pearl necklace perfectly, darling." The pearls were a gift from him last month, probably meant to be my final piece of jewelry. I take another sip of wine, watching him over the rim of my glass. The vintage is exceptional. A bottle we've been saving since our wedding day. Cole insisted we open it tonight, his own special touch for what he planned to be my final evening. The irony isn't lost on me. "Remember our first date?" he asks, swirling the dark liquid in his glass. Of course I remember. The same restaurant, the same table even. He'd ordered champagne then too, though I'd barely touched it, too nervous and excited by his attention. "You barely ate a thing," he chuckles, reaching across to touch my hand. "You were so shy." I allow his fingers to entwine with mine, forcing myself to smile. "You made me nervous," I reply, the words true despite everything. "You were so sophisticated, so worldly. I couldn't believe you were interested in me. How could I not be?" His thumb traces circles on my palm, a gesture that used to send shivers down my spine. "You were everything I was looking for." As I was young, wealthy, trusting, the perfect target. But he didn't count on one thing. Love can turn to ice when betrayed, and ice can preserve a heart's resolve far longer than passion ever could. The waiter approaches with our appetizers, breaking our intimate moment. As Cole withdraws his hand to make room for the plates, I catch him glancing at his watch, checking the time, waiting for his plan to unfold. Little does he know the timer he's watching is counting down to his own finale. I raise my glass again, offering him a smile that mirrors his own practiced perfection. To 5 unforgettable years, I toast, watching as he lifts his glass to meet mine. The crystal chimes, a bell-like sound that rings with finality. Yes, unforgettable indeed. The truth began unraveling 3 months ago on a rain-soaked Tuesday afternoon. Cole had left for another business trip, his 4th that month. I was organizing his office, something he usually discouraged, when I noticed something odd about the antique desk he'd brought from his family estate. The bottom drawer had a false back. My fingers trembled as I pressed the hidden catch, years of blind trust crumbling with each gentle click of the mechanism. Inside lay a burgundy leather folder, its contents threatening to spill out like whispered confessions. Bank statements, property deeds, insurance policies. But it was the photographs that stopped my heart. 3 women, all bearing a striking resemblance to me. Wealthy, trusting, beautiful. Charlotte in Boston, Elizabeth in Seattle, Marie in Chicago. Each smiling beside Cole in wedding photos, each with a different last name he'd used. Each vanished within 2 years of their marriages, leaving their fortunes to their devoted husband. The room spun as pieces clicked into place. His insistence on joint accounts. The subtle pressure to change my will. The vitamin supplements he'd started adding to my evening tea. My mysterious fatigue these past weeks. The weight of truth crushed against my chest as I sank into his leather chair, rain drumming against the windows like nature's warning bells. That night I smiled through dinner, laughed at his phone call and pretended everything was normal. Inside, ice crystallized around my heart, preserving the betrayal like a fossil in amber. I spent hours studying the documents, memorizing accounts and tracking patterns. Cole Scott was a ghost, a phantom who slipped from city to city, leaving broken dreams and empty bank accounts in his wake. The next morning I began my own careful dance. I hired a private investigator under the guise of researching a potential business partner. Sandra Pierce was thorough, discreet and most importantly female. Someone Cole would never suspect. Within weeks she uncovered more than I could have imagined. His business trips were carefully orchestrated meetings with lawyers and bankers. Each of his previous wives had shown similar symptoms before their disappearances. Fatigue, dizziness, confusion. Their cases remained open, evidence inconclusive, while their joint accounts were drained by their grieving widower. I watched him more carefully then, noting every detail with new eyes. The way he tested my memory with casual questions about our early dates. How he documented my declining health in careful emails to my doctor. The concerned calls to my family about my forgetfulness. He was building his narrative, laying groundwork for my eventual disappearance. The most chilling discovery came hidden in his personal laptop. The one he thought I couldn't access. A detailed timeline, clinical in its precision. My accident was scheduled for our anniversary dinner. Cole always did appreciate symbolism. Each night, I pretended to drink his special tea, disposing of it when he wasn't looking. I started taking small doses of what I found in his private safe, building immunity while maintaining the appearance of deteriorating health. He watched me with concern that I now recognized as calculation, each sympathetic touch a measurement of his progress. "You should rest, darling," he'd say, tucking me into bed like a child. "You're looking rather pale." His fingers would brush my cheek, checking my temperature, assessing his timeline. I'd smile weakly, playing my part in his production while fury burned beneath my skin. During the day I made my own preparations. Private accounts established under my grandmother's maiden name. Evidence carefully copied and distributed to secure locations. A detailed dossier of his activities sent to trusted friends with instructions to be opened if anything happened to me. Tonight, watching him sip his wine across our anniversary dinner table, I marvel at his composure. He truly believes he's won, that everything is proceeding according to his masterful plan. Perhaps that's why he's becoming careless, missing the slight changes in my behavior, the steel beneath my fragile smile. The waiter returns asking about our entrees. Cole orders for both of us. He always does lately, claiming to know what's best for my delicate stomach. I catch the slight twitch at the corner of his mouth, the ghost of satisfaction as he plays the devoted husband. Little does he know, every sympathetic glance, every concerned touch, every manipulative gesture only strengthens my resolve. I raise my glass again, admiring how the candlelight plays across the dark liquid. To us, I whisper and watch as he drinks deeply, savoring what he believes is his moment of triumph. The game is changing, my darling husband. Your move. Revenge, like love, requires patience. After discovering Cole's true nature, I spent 6 methodical months preparing. My garden became my sanctuary, each plant carefully selected for its properties. Foxglove with its innocent purple bells, oleander's delicate blooms, lily of the valley standing pristine and pure, nature's deadliest wrapped in beauty, much like Cole's deception. I befriended Eleanor, a retired botanist who lived on the outskirts of town. For my research, I explained, showing her my carefully crafted blog about natural remedies. She was delighted to share her knowledge, never suspecting that I was more interested in her expertise about toxic plants than healing ones. We spent afternoons discussing the properties of various species, my notebook filling with precisely measured annotations. Some plants, she once said, stirring her tea, can be both medicine and poison. It's all in the dosage. Her words echoed in my mind as I carefully cultivated my garden, each plant a potential instrument in my symphony of justice. At home, I maintained our routine with meticulous care. Weekly dinner parties with friends, charity galas, romantic date nights. I played my part flawlessly. Cole would kiss my forehead, telling our guests how brave I was dealing with Mike's mysterious illness. I'd smile weakly, letting him think his plan was working perfectly. "You're so good to me," I'd whisper as he tucked me into bed, watching his eyes gleam with satisfaction. Each display of weakness was calculated, each symptom carefully staged. I built my own timeline alongside his, a deadly waltz of preparation and pretense. The hardest part wasn't the planning. It was maintaining the facade of ignorance. Listening to him talk about our future while knowing his intentions. Feeling his touch and remembering how I once craved it. Smiling at his jokes while picturing the other women who had done the same, now silent and forgotten. I spent hours in our home office when he was away, meticulously documenting everything. Bank statements, property records, insurance policies, all carefully copied and secured in various locations. Each piece of evidence was a brick in the foundation of my protection, insurance against any future investigations. My daily routine became a cover for preparation. Morning walks to regain my strength were actually meetings with my private investigator. Afternoon naps were spent studying chemical compounds and their effects. Shopping trips allowed me to set up offshore accounts and secure new identities. The most challenging aspect was building immunity. Starting with minute doses, I gradually increased my tolerance to various compounds. Some nights left me shaking and sick, but each morning I grew stronger. Cole's concerned glances at my declining health only proved that my performance was convincing. "Perhaps we should consult another specialist," he'd suggest, his voice dripping with false concern. I'd shake my head, claiming I trusted only him to take care of me. His smile would widen, pride in his own cleverness blinding him to mine. Our social circle became unwitting participants in my plan. I confided in selected friends about my anxiety, my forgetfulness, ensuring witnesses to support Cole's narrative. But I also left carefully crafted breadcrumbs, letters speaking of my happiness, videos showing my lucidity, all dated and secured with trusted allies. As our anniversary approached, I watched Cole's excitement grow. He spent hours planning the perfect evening, selecting the restaurant, choosing the wine. Each detail was orchestrated to create the perfect scene for his final act. The irony of him planning his own downfall was not lost on me. My own preparations entered their final phase. The compound I'd chosen was elegant in its simplicity, untraceable, swift, and most importantly, similar enough to natural causes that no questions would be raised. I'd tested it countless times, perfecting the dosage while building my own resistance. Tonight, watching him order our appetizers with such confidence, I almost admire his dedication to the performance. 5 years of marriage and he's never once slipped, never shown his true face. But then I remember the others, Charlotte, Elizabeth, Marie, and my resolve hardens. The waiter arrives with our wine, a vintage Cole selected weeks ago. He insists on pouring it himself, ever the perfect husband. His hands are steady as he fills our glasses, unaware that his carefully laid plans are about to unravel. I touch the small vial concealed in my evening bag, feeling its weight like a promise. To new beginnings, he says, raising his glass. If only he knew how true those words would prove to be. The oak room at Le Blanc hasn't changed in 5 years. The same crystal chandeliers cast their soft golden glow, the same rich mahogany panels line the walls, and the same intimate corner table awaits us. Table 23, where Cole first caught my eye half a decade ago. Tonight it will witness another memorable moment between us. I arrived early, claiming I wanted to freshen up. The maitre d' recognized me instantly. "Mrs. Scott, always a pleasure," he smiled, leading me to our table. Mr. Scott called ahead. "Everything has been arranged exactly as he requested." "I'm sure it has. My darling husband always was meticulous with his planning." While waiting, I surveyed the room with practiced casualness. 2 elderly couples by the windows, a young family celebrating near the entrance, and a business dinner in progress at the center table. Perfect. Enough witnesses to establish the evening's normalcy, but none close enough to overhear our intimate conversation. The table setting was immaculate: white linens, polished silverware, and our special anniversary crystal glasses, the ones Cole had insisted on bringing from home. A thoughtful touch, he'd called it. The same glasses we'd used at our wedding, now destined for a different kind of celebration. Cole arrived precisely on time, his gray suit perfectly tailored, silver tie catching the light. He crossed the room with that confident stride that once made my heart race. Now I noticed the calculated nature of each movement, the practiced charm in his smile as he greeted the staff by name. "Darling, you look breathtaking," he said, kissing my cheek. His cologne, expensive, subtle, brought back memories of countless romantic evenings. I wondered if he'd worn the same scent for the others, if they'd found it as intoxicating as I once did. The sommelier approached with our pre-selected wine, a 2015 Chateau Margaux that Cole had been saving for this exact occasion. I watched him perform the ritual, presenting the bottle, cutting the foil, extracting the cork with practiced ease. Cole's eyes never left the deep red liquid as it was poured, first into his glass for approval, then mine. "Perfect," he pronounced, his voice rich with satisfaction. The sommelier departed, leaving us alone with our perfectly staged scene. I touched the small vial concealed in my clutch, its presence reassuring. Timing would be crucial. Too early might arouse suspicion, too late might give him the opportunity one couldn't afford him to have. "Remember our first night here?" Cole asked, reaching across to take my hand. "You were wearing blue, nervous about using the wrong fork." His thumb traced circles on my palm, a gesture that used to make me melt. "Now look at us. 5 years of perfect moments." I smiled, letting nostalgia color my voice. "You ordered champagne even though I told you I preferred wine." Said some occasions demanded bubbles. The memory felt distant, like watching a movie of someone else's life. And I was right, wasn't I? His eyes crinkled with amusement. "Just like I'm right about this wine. A perfect vintage for a perfect evening." He lifted his glass, examining the color in the candlelight. "Everything about tonight needs to be perfect." The waiter arrived with our appetizers. Seared scallops for him, French onion soup for me. Cole had ordered for us both, naturally. "You never could resist their soup," he commented, watching me take a careful sip. His attention to detail would have been touching if I didn't know its true purpose. As we ate, I felt the weight of the evening pressing around us. Each bite, each sip, each moment of casual conversation was leading us toward an inevitable conclusion. Cole checked his watch subtly, his 3rd time since arriving. Waiting. Anticipating. The irony of his impatience almost made me smile. The main courses arrived. His favorite Wagyu steak for him, roasted chicken for me. "You should try the steak," he urged, cutting a perfect bite. "It might be your last chance to taste Chef Marcus's specialty." The double meaning in his words hung heavy in the air. I declined politely, watching him savor the meat with obvious pleasure. My own meal remained largely untouched. Expected behavior for someone in my condition. Cole's eyes flickered with satisfaction at my apparent weakness. The crystal glasses caught the candlelight as I reached for my wine, the liquid dark and promising. "My love." Soon the final act would begin, and all your perfect planning would unravel like silk threads in a storm. I raised my glass, offering him a smile that held all the secrets of the past 6 months. "To us," I whispered, "and to perfect timing." Time slowed to a crystalline crawl as Cole raised his glass to meet mine. The crystal chimed softly, a delicate death knell in the candlelit hush of Louis Blanc. His confidence radiated across the table, a familiar warmth that once meant safety but now sparked only cold satisfaction in my chest. "You've barely touched your dinner," he noted, concern painting his features. The performance was flawless. The slight furrow of his brow, the gentle tilt of his head. How many times had he practiced these expressions in the mirror? How many other women had fallen for this same display of tender worry? "I'm saving room for dessert," I replied, my voice soft and slightly tremulous. Exactly what he'd expect from his increasingly frail wife. "You always said the chocolate soufflé here was to die for." The irony of my words brought a genuine smile to my lips. Cole leaned forward, his fingers brushing mine across the white tablecloth. "Actually, darling, I have a confession to make." His voice dropped to an intimate whisper, gray eyes holding mine with hypnotic intensity. "I've taken the liberty of arranging something special for dessert. A final surprise, if you will." "How thoughtful," I murmured, watching him take another sip of wine. My pulse quickened as he drank deeper, his throat working as he swallowed. "Any moment now. You always did know how to make our anniversaries memorable." The candlelight caught the ring on his left hand, the one he claimed was a family heirloom. I wondered if it had belonged to Charlotte or Elizabeth. Perhaps Marie. Soon it would join his collection of trophies, waiting for the next unsuspecting bride. "I've been thinking about our first night here," he continued, his voice taking on a dreamy quality. "You were so innocent, so trusting. Do you remember what you said when I ordered that ridiculously expensive champagne? That some things are worth splurging on," I recalled, watching his eyes begin to lose focus. "That life is too short not to celebrate the perfect moment." He blinked slowly, his hand trembling slightly as he reached for his water glass. "You're not feeling well," I observed, mirroring his earlier concern. "Perhaps the wine is too strong?" He loosened his tie, confusion flickering across his features. "Something's not, the wine tastes." His words slurred at the edges, realization dawning too late in his clouding eyes. I leaned forward, dropping my voice to match his earlier intimate whisper. "Did you know, darling, that some plants in my garden can cause symptoms remarkably similar to a heart attack? Particularly in combination with that special supplement you've been so lovingly adding to my tea." His face drained of color, fingers clutching the edge of the table. "What did you?" The words caught in his throat as understanding crashed over him. "I found them, Cole. All of them. Charlotte, Elizabeth, Marie." I kept my voice steady, watching him struggle to maintain his composure. "Did they realize too late as well? Did they look at you with the same betrayal you're feeling right now?" He tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't cooperate. The other diners remained absorbed in their own celebrations, oblivious to our intimate drama. "Help," he whispered, but the word barely carried across the table. "Shoo," I soothed, patting his hand as he'd done so many times during my illness. "Don't make a scene, darling. You're just having a bad reaction to the wine. These things happen, especially with aged vintages." Sweat beaded on his forehead as he fought to remain upright. "You switched the glasses." I finished for him, allowing myself a small smile. "Oh, my love. I switched them back. You see, I've been building immunity for months. That little nightcap you prepared for me tonight? I've been taking small doses since I found the vial in your study." Horror dawned in his eyes as the room began to spin around him. I signaled the waiter. "My husband isn't feeling well," I explained, my voice trembling with perfectly practiced concern. "I think the wine might be too strong. Could you help me get him to the car?" "Of course, madam," the waiter replied, already moving to assist. "Sir, let me help you up." I watched as they guided Cole's unsteady form through the restaurant, playing the part of the worried wife to perfection. His face had taken on an ashen hue, his breathing becoming more labored with each step. "Happy anniversary, my love," I whispered as we reached the exit. "You were right. Some moments are worth splurging on." The drive home was silent except for Cole's increasingly labored breathing. I took the long route, giving us privacy for our final conversation. The city lights blurred past like dying stars, casting intermittent shadows across his ashen face. "Pull over," he managed to gasp, his perfectly styled hair now damp with sweat. "Hospital." I guided the car into a secluded overlook, our favorite spot for watching sunsets during those early, innocent days. No hospitals tonight, darling. This is between us. My voice remained steady, though my hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel. Not from fear, but from 5 years of suppressed rage finally breaking free. How? He struggled with the word, his designer suit now disheveled, tie hanging loose around his neck. How long have you known? About your plan for tonight? Or about Charlotte, Elizabeth, and Marie? I turned to face him, drinking in the sight of his perfect facade crumbling. I found your secret drawer 3 months ago. The false back wasn't as clever as you thought. Though I must admit, keeping trophies from each wife was a rather poetic touch. His eyes widened in recognition. The ring. Yes, Marie's ring. The one you claimed belonged to your grandmother. I twisted it on my finger, watching it catch the moonlight. Did you tell them all that same story? Did they believe it as easily as I did? He tried to reach for the door handle, but his coordination was failing. I watched him struggle, remembering all the times I'd fought against his carefully administered poison, building my resistance in secret. The letters were a nice touch, I continued, my voice taking on an almost conversational tone. Writing to my family about my declining health, documenting my symptoms so meticulously. I particularly enjoyed the concerned emails to my doctor. You really did think of everything. Ruby, he whispered, my name a plea on his lips. We can discuss this, like you discussed it with the others? My laugh held no humor. Tell me, did they beg too? Did they try to reason with you as the poison took hold? Or did they never see it coming? His breathing became more ragged, panic fighting with the toxin in his system. I loved you. No, you loved my money, my trust, my innocence. I reached into my clutch, withdrawing the USB drive I'd prepared. Everything's here. The evidence of your previous marriages, the insurance policies, the carefully transferred funds. Did you really think I wouldn't investigate when the symptoms started? You don't understand. He gasped, fighting to maintain consciousness. I had reasons. Oh, I understand perfectly. I placed the USB drive in his jacket pocket. You're a collector, aren't you? You collect women, their fortunes, their lives. Each one carefully chosen, methodically destroyed. But you made one mistake, Cole. His head lolled against the leather seat, but his eyes remained fixed on me, terror mixing with a grudging admiration. What mistake? You taught me too well. All those lessons about patience, about planning, about paying attention to details. I brushed a strand of hair from his damp forehead, almost tenderly. I learned from the master, you could say. Police. He managed, though the word was barely audible. We'll find a tragic case of accidental wine contamination. A grieving widow who tried desperately to get her husband to the hospital, but he insisted on going home first. All those documented health issues finally coming to a head. I smiled, seeing understanding dawn in his fading eyes. You really did create the perfect cover story. You're just like me. The words came out in a whisper, his final attempt to wound. I leaned close, letting him see the truth in my eyes. Oh, darling. I'm better. You did this for money. I did it for justice. For Charlotte, Elizabeth, Marie. And for the woman I used to be, the one who believed in fairy tales and happy endings. His breathing grew shallower, his perfectly manicured hands clutching at nothing. I watched as the master of manipulation faced his final moments, stripped of all pretense and power. One last thing, I whispered, showing him the phone in my hand. I found your timeline. The one detailing how tonight was supposed to end. It's quite impressive, really. I just made a few small adjustments. Recognition flickered in his eyes. His own plan turned against him. The perfect symmetry of it all seemed to hit him in his final moments of consciousness. His lips moved, trying to form words, but no sound emerged. Goodbye, my love, I said softly, watching as his eyes finally closed. The police will be here soon. After all, I have to report my husband's tragic accident. The police lights painted the overlook in alternating flashes of red and blue, creating a surreal dance across Cole's still features. I stood wrapped in a shock blanket, playing my role to perfection as I recounted the evening's events through tears. He insisted on taking the scenic route home, I explained to Detective Sarah Morgan, my voice trembling. Said he wasn't feeling well after the wine, but wanted to see our favorite spot one last time. I should have taken him straight to the hospital. The detective's dark eyes studied me with quiet intensity. Mrs. Scott, you couldn't have known. The preliminary tests show a severe allergic reaction. These things can happen suddenly. She paused, jotting something in her notebook. The restaurant will be investigated, of course. I nodded numbly, watching the coroner's team work with professional efficiency. The USB drive remained secure in Cole's jacket pocket, a time bomb of evidence waiting to be discovered. His phone, with its damning timeline, sat in his other pocket. All the pieces laid out perfectly, waiting to tell their story. The next few days passed in a blur of formal statements and funeral arrangements. Cole's family arrived from out of town, people I'd never met during our marriage, all claiming close relationships that existed only in conversation. They spoke of him in glowing terms, sharing stories that rang hollow against the truth I knew. He was always so generous, his alleged cousin remarked at the wake. Remember that charity gala last spring? The woman's eyes were dry despite her mournful tone. I wondered how much she'd been paid to attend, to flesh out his manufactured background. The investigation proceeded exactly as I'd anticipated. The restaurant's wine supplier faced scrutiny. The bottle was tested, revealing traces of contamination. My documented history of serving on the hospital board ensured my medical knowledge was never questioned. Who would suspect a philanthropist who dedicated her time to healthcare causes? A week after the funeral, Detective Morgan requested another meeting. The familiar weight of the shock blanket was replaced by the subtle armor of a black designer suit as I sat across from her in the station. Mrs. Scott, she began, spreading photographs across her desk. We found some interesting items in your husband's possession. The USB drive and phone lay between us like bridge pieces in our delicate game. I don't understand, I whispered, allowing confusion to color my voice. Are those Cole's? She nodded, her expression carefully neutral. They contain some disturbing information about previous marriages, insurance policies, financial transactions. Her eyes met mine. Did you know your husband had been married before? The shock that crossed my face was genuine, not from the revelation, but from the artistry of watching my plan unfold. That's impossible. Cole told me I was his only. I let my voice break, reaching for the tissue box on her desk. We've confirmed at least 3 previous marriages. All to wealthy women. All ending in suspicious circumstances. She pushed a document toward me. And we found this timeline on his phone. It appears he was planning something. I scanned the document I knew by heart, allowing horror to dawn gradually on my features. These dates, these notes about my symptoms. My hands began to shake. Detective, are you saying? We believe your husband was planning to end your life that night. The wine glass from the restaurant showed traces of a sophisticated poison. She leaned forward, her voice gentling. The same compound was found in a vial in his study. Mrs. Scott. Ruby, it appears you weren't just a witness to a tragic accident. You were an intended victim who survived. The irony of her words almost made me smile. Instead, I collapsed into carefully crafted sobs, playing the role of a shattered widow discovering her husband's true nature. Detective Morgan rounded the desk to comfort me, her hand warm on my shoulder. We'll need to investigate further, she continued, but I want you to know you're safe now. Whatever he planned, it ended that night. I looked up at her through tears, seeing not suspicion but sympathy in her eyes. All those other women, I whispered. Could I have helped them if I'd known? This isn't your fault, she assured me. Cole Scott was a skilled manipulator. The evidence suggests he'd been perfecting his technique for years. You couldn't have known. But I did know, I thought as she continued explaining the investigation's next steps. I knew everything, planned everything, executed everything. The perfect ending to Cole's perfect plan. Just not the ending he'd envisioned. As I left the police station, the setting sun painted the sky in shades of crimson and gold. Somewhere, perhaps Charlotte, Elizabeth, and Marie could finally rest. Their stories would be told, their cases reopened, their families given closure. And I would emerge as the lucky one, the survivor who unknowingly helped expose a predator's web of deception. 6 months later, I stood on my balcony in Antibes, watching the Mediterranean glitter under the setting sun. The French Riviera had become my sanctuary, far from the whispers and sympathetic glances that followed me back home. Here I was simply the wealthy American widow who kept to herself, and that suited me perfectly. The investigation had concluded exactly as I'd orchestrated. Cole's victims' families received closure, their cases resolved with his posthumous confession found in a scheduled email, my final gift to them. His extensive network of fake relatives crumbled under police scrutiny, revealing the elaborate facade he'd built over years. I sipped my evening wine, a local rose that tasted nothing like the vintage from that final night. My garden here contained only flowers. No herbs, no mysterious plants. Some tools once used should be retired permanently. The sunset reminded me of Detective Morgan's last visit, 2 months after Cole's death. She'd brought final paperwork and unexpected news. There were others, she'd said, sliding photographs across my kitchen table. We found evidence of 2 more marriages, earlier ones. The pattern wasn't as refined then. He was learning. I'd studied the faces of these unknown women, these first drafts of Cole's perfected scheme, and felt a strange kinship with them. We were all characters in his performance, though I'd managed to rewrite the ending. A gentle breeze carried the scent of jasmine from my balcony garden, mingling with the salt air. My phone buzzed with a message from Charlotte's sister. We'd formed an unlikely friendship, survivors and witnesses to Cole's legacy. The support group we'd created for his victims' families had become a source of healing for many, including myself. The sound of approaching footsteps drew my attention. Madame Scott? Henri, my favorite waiter from the hotel's restaurant, appeared with fresh towels. Will you be dining in this evening? I turned, studying his features in the fading light. Handsome, charming, with that same careful attention to detail I'd learned to recognize. Actually, Henri, I was thinking of trying that new bistro you recommended. Would you care to join me when your shift ends? His smile brightened. It would be my pleasure, madam. As he left, I caught my reflection in the balcony doors, older now, wiser, but still capable of attracting attention. Henri had been leaving subtle hints for weeks, each interaction carefully crafted to seem spontaneous. His background story had inconsistencies I'd noticed immediately, like echoes of a song I knew by heart. My phone buzzed again, this time with an email from my private investigator. The preliminary report on Henri lay waiting to be read, promising to reveal whether my suspicions were paranoia or instinct. I picked up the small notebook where I'd been documenting our interactions, noting patterns and discrepancies. The familiar practice felt both comforting and disturbing. Had Cole kept similar notes? Had his meticulous planning become a part of me? The sky deepened to purple, stars beginning to emerge over the Mediterranean. I thought of Cole's last words, "You're just like me," and wondered if he'd been more right than he knew. The skills I'd learned, the patience I'd developed, the attention to detail that had saved my life. They were his teachings, his legacy. Opening my laptop, I began my own research into Henri's past. Social media profiles that seemed too perfectly curated. Employment history with convenient gaps. A pattern of wealthy women left behind in different coastal towns. My lips curved into a smile as I closed the laptop. Perhaps Cole had taught me too well, or perhaps he'd simply awakened something that had always been there. The thrill of unraveling deception, of seeing through carefully constructed facades. It was intoxicating. I retrieved my evening bag, checking my reflection one final time before heading to dinner. The black dress hugged my curves, the pearls at my throat catching the last rays of sunlight. In my clutch, alongside my lipstick and phone, rested a small notebook and a vial of clear liquid, tools of a trade I thought I'd left behind. The elevator arrived with a soft chime. As I stepped inside, I caught my reflection in its mirrored walls. The woman who stared back was neither victim nor villain, but something in between. A survivor who'd learned to play the game better than her teacher. "Good evening, Madam Scott," the elevator attendant nodded. "Good evening," I replied, my smile holding secrets of its own. "I have a feeling tonight will be the beginning of something interesting." The elevator doors closed, carrying me down to where Henri waited, unaware that he'd chosen the wrong widow for his next performance. Some lessons once learned become impossible to unlearn. And some dances are more intriguing when both partners know the steps. The game, it seemed, was not yet over. It had merely evolved, and so had I.